Maya, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, I'm very excited.
Me too. Tell me, who's Maya Raichoora?
I think I'm constantly changing, I'd say, but at the moment I'm like monk mode, so I'm very more introverted at the moment. I'm feeling quite aligned, but I'm also like entering a new, I think, stage of my life. So I guess I'm just honoring and embracing the change. That's where I'm at the moment. So a little bit of a monk mode, but yeah, that's
quite a lot of change coming, right? On the cusp of releasing your book.
Yes, the book. So professionally, there's obviously like a massive change, and I think, I've never done it before. I think it's just about staying really focused on what like the bigger goal is, the bigger mission. How you get there will change and new things will come, surprising things. But I think, yeah, as long as there's laser focus on what the big mission is, that's what's key.
I love that. Take me back to a younger Maya. So yeah. I want to know the kind of who and the why, early inspirations, and then I want to cover what happened to you at 15 years old as well.
I'm still very young. No, I'm kidding. So when I was young, I've just always been very high performing. And like, you know what people call like high achievers? That was me. I'm also, when you're from a South Asian family, naturally there are some expectations where, you've got to get good grades. You tend to have a route of going into finance or law or something like that, or medicine.
Was there pressure on you to do that as well?
Never like active pressure. I think it was more societal pressure. Like, all my friends or family around me had done that. So it was kind of like a silent expectation. But you obviously do internalize that, right? And everyone was very clever around me. But then it pushed me to also do that. So that was great. And then a big part of it was I was also a sportswoman. So I played badminton for my county, then nationally as well. So I was training like 5-6 times a week, and that really was the thing I wanted to take forward. And then about 15 years old, life was actually amazing. Like I was like getting to my peak at this point. And started just developing some constipation and like just a little bit of pain in my stomach. Didn't think too much of it. So, you just go to the doctor, they kind of say like, okay, there's maybe a little bit of inflammation or things like that. So we just monitor it. But things were just getting like a lot worse. So went back and I was put into like a colonoscopy. So, just to check what was going on inside. And then was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. Which really, when I found out, it kind of like, it didn't faze me then, because I was like, okay, I'm a positive young girl. Like the doctors were like, actually, people live with this quite often. And I'm pretty sure it's like every half an hour, one person gets diagnosed with either Crohn's or colitis. So it's quite prominent. So I kind of like took it on my chin, but I never changed anything in my life. I kept doing what I was doing, same sort of routines, etc.
This was a healthy lifestyle, right? If you're playing badminton at the national level, then you are keeping fit, you're eating well, and
yeah, I had a good life, and I was careful about those sort of things. Just worse and worse and worse, to the point that basically I'd have these flares, and flares would last maybe 4 months. And what it would be is I would be going to the loo maybe 20, 30 times a day. But it's just pure like blood, basically. You are screaming for your life, but you can't even scream because of how like paralyzing it is. And then when you're not in the physical pain, you're just fearing when it next comes. So every time I would drink water or even like try and put a little bit of food in my mouth, immediately my body would just be in pain. And so there was just this like, I can't even explain what it did to my body, but it felt animalistic. Like it felt that I had no control over it. It actually felt like the pain was so much bigger than my body, which is why like I just couldn't control anything. And then of course mentally, it just breaks. A young girl like that, and I was someone who had so much fire, joy, excitement for the world, goals, hopes, dreams, just all went. It all went. Not because of me, but because actually I was looking at my reality. And long story short is, this went on for maybe like 4 or 5 years. So many hospital visits, so many medications, surgery, like, you need to take your colon out. And I'm just like, you're 17, what do you say? What do you do? Couldn't go to university.
It wore you down ultimately. All that positivity, you're sort of being funneled into a place where you can't do what you wanted to do. You can't follow the dreams, right?
Yeah, and it got to a point where like I didn't want to fight anymore. I just was like, I've been strong. Yes, I'm a resilient person. And everyone would be like to me, oh my God, Maya, you're so strong, like you can do it. I was like, I just don't want to. Like, I'm so tired of being strong. Like, I don't want to keep fighting. And I had so much peace with that. I really did. Because like, why would I want to go through this again and again? It genuinely broke me in every way possible. And I just didn't see any way out of it at all, like at all. And even if I think back to it now, like it feels so scary that I was in that position.
So what got you out of it? What got you through it? Because the Maya I know, you got a huge social following now where you would just exude positivity. You inspire people. You give amazing information out to get people through the day, if you like.
Yeah.
What did 17-year-old Maya do to get through it?
There's obviously a combination of things, right? Like there's support from all areas, whether it's, diet, lifestyle, etc. But the thing that I can honestly say changed the trajectory of my life was my mind. It was really how I was using my mind, the thoughts I was thinking, the emotions I was feeling. And you know why this is important is because, you mentioned like, but Maya, you had like quite a healthy lifestyle. And I did. I was playing sport. I was eating well. It really does show that the emotions and the thoughts and your mindset really do have a massive role to play in your health and just general like your mindset, your well-being, your whatever it might be. So for me, a really big thing was in hospital, I started to learn visualization, which is, it's basically mental imagery. Now, a lot of athletes will use this. Famous people like Michael Phelps, Michael Jordan, Serena Williams, they all talk about it, but it's never really something anyone else talks about. It's always in the elite circles in sports or performance. But I initially used it to try and remember and learn and practice how to walk again. So I was doing it, I was mentally rehearsing what it would feel like to just be a bit more human, to like see myself walking, eventually running, even actually seeing myself at uni. Now, of course, at the beginning, it just felt a bit like wishful thinking. And it's only in hindsight do I realize that when you're repeating those images, you are actually training your brain to align to that, to actually go for that as a goal and to, help your brain and body actually do it and like make it happen.
And you taught yourself, when you say you're in hospital, so was there a book, was there someone that gave, or
No.
you literally, so something changed in you where you went from not caring to then actually, wanting to pull yourself out, and then that's where you understood the power of this, right?
It was actually a nurse. She kind of came into my room and was like, she could see I was so just done. And everyone had just got their uni results, and I'd even got into uni, but I couldn't go. And she was like, Maya, if you weren't in hospital here, like, where would you be? And I was so angry that she asked me that, because this was my reality. Why would you even ask me a question like that?
Almost cruel.
Yeah, I was so annoyed. I even told her, can you leave my room? But then I guess I had nothing to lose. And I do remember, it was only 2 minutes. I closed my eyes, and that's when I first saw, like, actually, where would I be? And all I saw was I was walking. That's all I was doing. And it's not that I suddenly was positive. It showed me that there could be another possibility. And, I think we really underestimate the power of hope. So I don't think hope is being extra positive or like, being like crazy optimistic. I think hope reminds humans that there has to be and there is a way through. It's not to say it's going to be easy and it's going to be all like yay and fun, but hope can be such an amazing thing to be like, what if? Like, what if you actually didn't have to stay in hospital all your life? What if that could be your future? What if you could go to uni? Whereas the whole time, everyone was kind of saying, unfortunately, you will be ill all your life. Unfortunately, you can't go to hospital. So I was saying, the opposite of that.
And you'd been told that, just to be clear. So this was, because from your story point of view, was sort of 2, 3, 4 years of this, but then you came out of it. Had you been told this is your life now? Were you in a position where, actually, Maya, this is how it's going to be for you?
Yeah, because the first thing they tell you, it's incurable. The first thing. And I think that's such a dangerous word because your mind sticks to it. It's like, oh my gosh, I can never get rid of this thing. So and especially when you're young. So yes, and because it had happened now 9, 10 times, I was like, this is my reality.
Hence feeling broken. So from that moment where, almost like that, maybe it's the wrong word, but a trigger from the nurse to then start visualizing, what was the journey from you then starting to visualize Maya walking to doing the things that you want to do, to then, dare I say, a moment where that overlapped with you actually curing from the physical, physical scenario?
Yeah, one thing I will say, I'm obviously like, I am careful with the language around illness, because like I'm never going to say like this completely healed me or I'm cured. Like at the end of the day, all I'll say is I'm like the happiest and healthiest I've ever been. And no, I don't have symptoms, which is amazing for me, right?
Considering where you were, right?
Exactly. Now, that journey was interesting, because when I left hospital, I asked myself, well, why did my mind help me in that situation? Like, why was I able to actually see something and then actually do it? And that's when I guess I started researching my own things. I was, looking at mental imagery. I was looking at the words visualization. I also trained with my own visualization teacher, who was helping me also explore different ways of using it. But really, it was just, and I'm going to use this word like purposefully, it was obsession. It was pure obsession in that topic. It wasn't just passion. It was like, I am obsessed with how powerful this thing really is. And I would practice every day, because I wasn't at uni. So I literally had all the time in the world. I was still obviously in pain and in symptoms, and I had to, it wasn't easy, but I could see changes happening, which is why I just dedicated everything to being like, let me learn all there is to learn about visualization. And what I guess I found was just incredible.
Can you elaborate? Because I find this fascinating, and there's a fine line between manifesting, if you like, and visualization. I'd love you to explain that, because for me, if I can see something I'd like to achieve, and using your analogy that I cannot walk and walk about naturally now, and I want to be able to walk, the journey from visualizing that's all mental to then the steps you put in place to actually, and the behaviors and the habits you put in place to actually get to that point where you're walking. I'd love to know about that, and almost your sort of difference between manifesting, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make this happen, as well as just visualizing it, thinking about it.
Yeah, so I love this question. When I was first visualizing walking, it wasn't actually just seeing myself doing it. So I actually didn't learn this through like manifestation. For me, I was actually mentally rehearsing the process of walking. I was remembering what it would feel like to move my legs. So it was nothing to do with like the outcome. I wasn't seeing myself walking perfectly. I was simply using process visualization to get better at walking. That is simply it. Now, if I look at, so manifestation as a whole is this idea that when you can see something in your mind, you can make it happen. Visualization, I think it's very important to see as a neurological mental training technique. Now, I think that's important because the way you frame something will change how often you do it. Now, do we ever say that Michael Phelps manifested 26 golden medals? Would we ever say that? No. But he used visualization every day. Now, there are 5 types. Outcome. This is when you're seeing the end result in your mind. So that is most linked to manifestation, because you're seeing the goal, what it feels like, and that can really improve your beliefs, your confidence, overcome doubt. Number 2, process visualization. Nothing about the outcome. So nothing about manifestation. This is simply, how can I improve a task or an activity by mentally rehearsing it? So that's why athletes will mentally rehearse their swing. They might see literally how their arms move when they're swimming. And this one is very much like you're looking at your movements. It's nothing to do with the bigger picture. Negative visualization. What if something goes wrong? So Michael Phelps did this one where his coach made him imagine his goggles filling up with water. And what he would do, so in his visualization, he would respond. And then in Beijing, it happened. And in the interview after, people were like, how did you win and get the world record? And you literally swam 75% of that race completely blind. And he was like, because I visualized that scenario so many times. So when it did happen, you know, a lot of us would be like, oh my God, should I take them off? Should I like keep going? He didn't have to worry about that at all.
He was prepared.
He knew.
Mentally.
Exactly, so negative. Then we have creative, one of my favorites. This really comes from medicine. It comes from the placebo effect, where you're using visualization and mental imagery to make emotions, sensations, pain tangible. So like, for example, instead of just being like, okay, I feel anxious and then not doing anything about it, I'd ask you, well, where are you feeling anxious? And you might say, my gut. I'd be like, what does it look like in the body? And you might say, it's like this heat, it's like a red fire. And then we'd use your imagination to pour water on it to slowly allow that to release and heal. And therefore you can actually manage your anxiety better. And then lastly is explorative visualization. This is very undocumented and unknown. It's what the likes of Walt Disney, Einstein, Nikola Tesla used to tap into a level of creativity that we can't in a conscious way. So when you look at it as, okay, there are 5 techniques, 4 of them are nothing to do with manifestation at all. They all train different areas of the brain and are helping you with different parts of the way you think, feel, and perform. And I do believe that language is very important because visualization is part of your mental fitness. Just like you go for walks, go to the gym, treat it like that, and you will get the benefits.
This is a key thing for your mental fitness, right? And the kind of aspirations to be the Nike of mental fitness. You put branding to something that you could argue we all should really be striving to try and achieve, right? But actually, there's a real sort of ambition there, and coming from lived experience. You know, thank you for taking the time to elaborate and explain on that, because not only did you get yourself walking and live the life you're living now, but you've become, I guess, an entrepreneur through that. You've become a disruptor through that space, if you like. I want to know about that journey. So this obsession and this desire to crave information from your own lived experience to then bringing that into effectively a business, and then how successfully been with that. I want to know that journey. I want to know when you kind of had something where you think, actually, I can do something with this to help others from my own experience.
I guess I never had the plan to do this. And really, I kept the illness and what I was going through a secret for at least 6 years. Only my immediate family knew, not even my extended family. Why? Because I was so ashamed. I was so ashamed. Think about it, 15, 16-year-old girls, you think they're gonna enjoy talking about going to the loo, being in pain? This is when everyone's meeting boys for the first time. I was so embarrassed and ashamed, and it was so isolating. So sharing my story to anyone, let alone online, was not an easy decision. I was so scared because I thought I'd be judged, people wouldn't like me, they'd be like, oh, that's so weird. And I was wearing adult nappies, things like that. I had to admit all these things. It felt like I'd been holding a secret for so long. So I remember when it was this particular year in uni, during COVID actually, where I just felt like I had been hiding so much of who I was, and I didn't know what to do about it. And I remember just one day pressing record on Instagram, and I just said it. I was like, I have never said this to anyone before, but I basically was diagnosed with XYZ, and I just basically explained my story for about 9 minutes. A weird thing happened where I guess obviously there was a lot of sympathy, and it's oh, I never knew about this. But then nothing changed like that. But then I asked myself, I was like, well, I know that sharing that helped one other person. And I was like, well, maybe if I share it a bit more, it could help another person or just a third person.
Very selfless.
Yeah, and I just kind of kept doing that. And do you know what it was? I wish I had someone when I was going through something like that. I just wish that information was available to me. I just can't even explain. It would have saved my life way earlier. Even when I was younger, I wish I had that. To know that you have control over your brain and you can actually wire it and change it, that would have been amazing.
You're that person now, right?
Well,
I mean, I can say that to you. There's no arrogance about you in the slightest, but I guess you've built a platform, a community, an audience that I only have to go on my LinkedIn to put a post out and then see that you put something out, and the amount of people that want to be part of that. You're putting stuff out from that lived experience, and that makes you the role model, makes you the person that wasn't there when, dare I say, you needed it. And that must have resonated with so many people for that to have blown up in the right sense. And I guess, going back to that, when you started to put information out and be more vulnerable, did that happen quite quickly? Because, ultimately you've been able to scale, and, you're ruthlessly driven. Ruthless is not the right word, but that obsession, that focus. Yeah. And I want to bring that into that kind of elite mindset, if you like, because now the people you're working with that come to you, I want to sort of open up a little bit. They're known sports stars. They're chief execs and C-suites of businesses that, dare I say, might already be operating at a very high level. But and we had this chat off camera a couple of weeks ago, right, where someone that might not be world champion but can be. That's where you're working. I want to know how you got into that space.
Yeah, I once read this quote and I loved it. It was like, passionate people watch obsessed people change the world. And Brilliant. I really like it because it made me think, like, let's just go all in. Let's go all in on it, see what can happen. And, I obviously claim and say that I'm the UK's leading mental fitness expert. When I first did that, I obviously wasn't. It wasn't a thing. But I'm very I like being bold, where I'm just like, let's do it. Let's say that you're going to do it and then make it happen.
Visualization.
Yeah, exactly. Now, what I find interesting about what you said is that mental fitness in itself is something that everyone needs, but they don't always know it. Now, if I look at why do I see this skill like working very well in like the elite space, etc. So how a water bottle in Tesco, it might be like, I don't know, £1. On the plane, it might be like £6. I really looked at that because the skill of visualization for the mainstream people, it's like, okay, it's nice to have. For them, when they're going from good to great, it is an absolute must. If they do not have it, like, you are at a massive disadvantage. Now, I love the balance of working with some of the best minds in the world, combined with making it accessible to more people, because I continue to learn and I can continue to share. Now, I think the really important thing is that for so long, because visualization has been accessible to only the elite stars, I'm like, no, it needs to be for more people. But what I found is that athletes who are much younger or are coming into the scene have no idea about it, because we were never taught to train the mind. And I look at tennis players, I look at runners, they all have physical coaches. But then if you actually hear what athletes say when they win, 90% a mind game. Yet none of their training is. And it's because the best in the world knew that, so they had their coaches. And look, I'm not there to force people, but if someone's like, no, Maya, I want to be a champion, then I'll help you. Because you have to want that. You have to have that fire. You have to have that, like, I want to do what others aren't prepared to do. That's where I come in. That's
brilliant. What would you say to someone that's watching or listening that says, I don't need that? I'm in amazing physical shape, and I know what I want to achieve, and so on. So why could you help me? What would you do to help me? What would you say to that?
If you stopped working out, let's say, you would probably maybe gain some weight, you'd get a bit weaker. Same thing, if you're feeling amazing, love that. How do we maintain that? Because, all of us, we're human, we're all gonna experience mental weakness. It may not be mental illness, but mental weakness we all do, even I do, right? I'm sometimes wake up a bit fuzzy, not as not as focused, not as high performing. In those moments, do you know what to do to train your brain back, to make it sharper? And you know what I loved? So I want to give you a slight analogy here. What if you had to pay for your mind? What if you actually had to pay a subscription to use your mind? Wouldn't you make it the sharpest and most best and high-performing version it could be? You would, right?
Especially if you could pay more to fine-tune it.
Exactly.
Interesting.
But we just get it, we just have it, right? We have this $1 trillion computer in our heads. We take it for granted, massively. But if you think, okay, but if I was paying for this, I'd invest in it way more. And sometimes, let's just plant that seed and think, if you want that champion mindset, whether that means managing your emotions better, achieving your goals, being a kinder mother, it can be anything. why not give yourself the best chance to make it happen?
I love that. Without naming anyone, can you give me an example of someone you've worked with where there's been a huge transformation and almost kind of why? And then just elaborating on the kind of person that comes to you.
I'll kind of give it in, well, do you know what? There's a really common theme that people who are in these like very high profile positions, whether you are a Premiership footballer or you might be a CEO of a company, they all appear very confident, but gosh, you know, internally, they're also saying the same things we do, like, I shouldn't be here. Do I deserve to be here?
Imposter
What
syndrome.
if I can't do it? Yeah, imposter syndrome is a big one. Or like actually lacking belief. And in fact, there was a study that came out that said that athletes, the number one thing that they are struggling with is confidence. Isn't that amazing? That you're on the world stage and yet we still suffer with that. So I love teaching, and it's the first thing I do with everyone, is the character visualization, your Batman effect. So people like Kobe Bryant, even people like Serena Williams, they all use this where it's like, when I step on court, when I step on that pitch, who do I want to be? Forget about what I need to do. Who do I want to be? And I worked with a footballer when he was in the Euros. And so this was last year. And I gave him this recording where before he would go on to pitch, he would listen to it, just 5 minutes, and it would ask him to create the character in his mind, connect to it, become it, watch how he walks onto the pitch, watch how he speaks to other people, and then eventually how he plays as well. And he said to me after, he was like, Maya, I have never, ever been able to get to that zone before, ever. And I was like, that's amazing. And that can be translated into my life, into your life, into the CEOs I work with. So character visualization is a great way to get started. It really can build up your identity.
It's great because you get the fulfillment of you knowing you helped there, and then you can literally have that feedback from someone that was already performing well, that's now going higher.
Yeah, and you know, I was once speaking to this Olympic skier, and I was like to her, oh yeah, like, you know, those seconds really matter. She was like, no, Maya, it's like 0.00, like 0.01 seconds that matter. That is what will make you a champion or not. So really, any of those tiny 1% or 0.1% you're doing, they do make a difference. They really do. They compound.
I want to talk, coming back to you actually, and something about that, the way you described self-belief there makes me think of my two girls growing up, 13 and 15-year-old girls growing up in a world full of social media.
Yes.
That creates judgment, fear of being judged, bullying at school, and that could be just from putting a video out about themselves or singing, which of course is in the true sense of what you did, which has been vulnerable. A lot of adults and children do not want to do that now because of this culture. I want to know almost sort of what advice you'd give to, whether it's my girls or someone watching that's locked up in that space, is listening and watching to you now going, from where you were, that you described how afraid you were, to then being vulnerable, building habits around that, to actually I'm embracing this, and you can tell without being in any arrogance at all, you're content and very, very happy to be yourself now, not holding anything in. What advice would you give to someone that actually wants to let themselves out but feels trapped?
I'll give two answers to this. I think self-belief is genuinely a full-time job. Like, I don't think it's easy. I think it's a feeling, it's also a practice, it's also discipline. There are going to be some days you genuinely don't believe in yourself, but can you do one tiny thing that at least can add to it, that you can actually feel, no, you know what, I did this today, tiny thing. The second thing that has genuinely really helped me is, I think we live in a world where there are two types of people, prey and then predators. Now, prey look at the animal kingdom, they've got eyes on the side of their heads, so they're always looking for danger. And in you know, our world, it's like we're looking for the likes. We're looking, will people care? Will people like me? Will they judge me? You're kind of playing the game of life so that you don't lose. You're always in danger. Then you've got the predators. They've got eyes on the front of their heads. They're like, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to have laser focus and I'm going to strike. And if you think of like a lion, does a lion get every single deer or zebra that it goes for? Does it?
No.
Does it make it any less of a lion? No. In fact, Federer said that, right? He was like, in that speech he did at the university, he was like, you know, I lost 50% of my rallies, but I won the ones that counted. So I love this predator mindset.
And he moved on as well, didn't he? That was the thing. He didn't look back and go, I missed that deer. You know, he's
exactly.
moved on.
Whereas we don't do that. So I love this predator mindset to be like, you know what? let me shoot my shot. Let's go for it. Let's put that video online of me playing the guitar. Let's go and tell this person that, you know what, let's start this business. Yeah, it might fail, but the most dangerous opponents are the ones who aren't afraid to lose. And I think going with that mindset of like, let's just gamify life a bit, like a video game, level up, level down. It's like snakes and ladders kind of thing. I think we then can let go of this thing of, well, what if we don't get there? And instead you're like, but I tried.
I love that.
That's what I love about the Predator.
Almost like you've been living from that, especially from a 15-year-old Maya onwards, you've almost been living in a bit of an experiment because you've had to. You went from a place where, is this it? So then why don't I try this when I try? And you've seen the results. And now you've turned that into really quite a successful business. Sitting here now with the book coming, with, you set out to be the kind of Nike, and we must cover that actually, the Nike of mental health, mental fitness, to then actually have these moments with Nike. But sitting here now, what is your definition of success?
Success to me is, and I'm a little bit biased, but success to me is my health, my mental, my physical, and my emotional health. Because the thing I learned is that if you do not work, nothing else will. Your dreams won't, your relationships won't, your businesses won't. So that is always my fundamental value, is my health. And even today, I will never sacrifice my health for my work or for people. No, it is the number one thing that I will put ahead. And it's like, you'll have like, I don't know what that word is or that saying is, where you have like 1,000 problems until you get sick. Then you literally have one problem. And that is what happened. Yeah. And so now to me,
non-negotiable for you. So what do you do to prioritize your health? So there's maybe a morning routine. There's certain things that you swear by that work for you. And you'd have found them over this period of time to refine, I guess, to sort of what you're doing daily. What are those things you're doing both mentally and physically?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty intuitive. I mean, look, diet-wise, I eat whole foods. Very clean, 80-20. Sometimes, I'll have some chocolate, don't mind. But I love that. I feel good about it. 2, always, move my body. I always say do 3 things. 1 thing for your body, 1 thing for your mind, 1 thing for your soul. Every day. And by for your soul, I mean also play, read, connect.
Have some fun.
Have some fun, yeah, exactly. For the mind, I absolutely do meditation and visualization. And then for the body, I like to dance, I like to run, I play a lot of racket sports still, which is amazing. So I'm not like crazy strict on myself. I'm not like a marathon runner, but you know what? I care about it.
What about that sort of morning routine? You're a successful businesswoman now, right? So there's a whole thing that goes with the win the morning, win the day. Get up early and so on. Do you conform to that?
Yeah, well, so I wake up, first thing, headphones in, and I just dance. I just dance because when you're sleeping, you take your whole day with you. So when you wake up, you literally hold on to that. So I literally shake it off. I just shake off everything and I feel so good. Then I'll do my visualizations. Then I'll probably read or journal. And then that's it. And then I carry on. And I love that. It just primes me so well. Yeah.
I love that. Now, let's talk about Nike. Let's talk about that almost visualization of Maya. You set your heart on that. And I think we had a chat again a couple of weeks ago where a lot of that is now visible to people that have followed you however long, to be like, oh, she's achieved what she wanted to. But there's a huge amount of graft there. And actually there's a real undertow of that all the way through this. Health takes effort. Entrepreneurship takes effort. Long days, sleepless nights or lack of sleep, if you like, which, the balance is always tricky. I want to know how you've made that happen, because I know there was a lot of, I mentioned earlier about people coming to you, but I know there's a lot of you going after as the predator, if you like.
Yeah,
so talk me through that.
Exactly that. I've never lost the kind of old school entrepreneurs. I love just go on a door and knock on it and sell something, right? I quite like that idea. And I think people think that, because I've got a big following, it all comes to me. Honestly, the best things that have happened have been because I've gone for them. Now, Nike's a good example because it was actually in one of my visualizations that I always just saw this tick, doing an event with them. And I was like, cool, planted a seed. And here again, this is not manifestation where then okay, I saw it and I do nothing about it. So with that, I basically emailed everyone from Nike that I could find. It was 15 people, no response. Kept doing it one more time, literally nothing. And then as I was in London and stuff like that, I went into stores and I was like, oh, should we do an event? Things like that. And they were like, oh, no, you need to contact this person. I was like, okay, I'm back in that circle. And then eventually, it was my 6th visit to a store. And maybe they were just being like, look, she needs to just never come here again. We'll do it. So made that happen, and we did this event. And then their whole team was like to me, like, why have we not done more of this? And I was like, thank you. So it started like that. And then they actually called me back for like 4 more events. But then my work didn't stop there, because I knew that to make real change, let's really become their first ever mental fitness trainer. Let's do it. They've never done it before. They have running trainers, yoga, but none of the mental fitness. And that then became my aim. And I was like, right, we're in a little bit. Now we need to really talk to the right people. And at first it was like, oh, we don't really do that. We have mindfulness. I was like, yeah, no, I don't do that though. And then, you know, through the hard work, through the conversations, and through sharing the vision, that was key. Like, I truly believe I cannot do this on my own. I can't. And I want the right partners and people to join me. And they are one of them. Because, you know, if you look at any of their adverts, what do they actually focus on? It's the mindset. It's not really about the running. It's about the mindset. And so I sold them this vision. And yeah, I guess, you know, then late last year was announced as their first ever mental fitness trainer. And so now work with their athletes, but also the community. And I couldn't be more prouder of it, because I fully know that took at least 2.5 years to make happen.
And only some of that you can show on the socials and so on, because there's so much behind the scenes, the door knocking, as you say, right, which is not necessarily visible. What have you not done yet that you would love to achieve? You know, what's the sort of next goals and other goals that go alongside that?
Obviously, I have like particular athletes or clients that I would love to work with, not because of just who they are, because I know I can help. That's I think my toxic trait is I'm like, when I see someone, I'm like, oh my God, I know I could help you on this. I'm like, it just sticks with me. So the background of my phone screen is me in front of like Wembley Stadium. And I really want to take one of my events to Wembley Stadium. I want to make mental fitness like the coolest kind of concert you've ever seen.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, so that's the aim.
That's Maya Mental Fitness.
Yes.
What about Maya Raichoora and Strictly Come Dancing?
Yeah, so obviously, I have 3 key goals in my life. One is Nike of Mental Fitness. 1, I want to open a sushi restaurant because I love sushi. And 3, yeah, I want to go on and win Strictly Come Dancing. Yeah, I just love it.
You heard it here.
Yeah, like a good Argentine tango, I think, in the final. I'm so for it.
Well,
it'll be great.
You've got that predator eyes forward. I felt it. It's a massive vibe off you, and I know how busy you are as well. So it's a huge privilege and pleasure to be able to film with you today.
No, thank you. It's been really fun.
Thank you for making time.
Thank
Proper
you.
inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you.